MBA show, and today is a Q&A Weekends episode where we answer your question right here on the show. If you have a question that you want to ask, you could just email us at contact@100mba.net, or you can tweet at me at BizRepublic, B-I-Z-Republic. We would love to answer your question. As always, I'm your host, your coach, your teacher, Omar Zenhom. I'm also the co-founder of the $100 MBA, a complete business training and community online. You can check us out at 100mba.net. We've got a lot of free goodies for you there, free course, free guides, a lot of free stuff. And today's question comes from Phil, and Phil asks, I'm opening up an old school video arcade. Pretty cool. Should I buy a property or rent? Good question, Phil. A lot of people encounter this question or encounter this decision anytime they start a physical business. And I'm going to give you my straight up honest answer to help you with this decision in today's episode. Can't wait to get into it. So let's get down to business. Today's episode of the $100 MBA show is sponsored by Privlo. Can't get a mortgage because you're self-employed, make an uneven income, or have an old credit blemish? Privlo is a private mortgage lender that can help where traditional mortgage lenders can't. Privlo is a new kind of mortgage lender that takes a holistic view of your finances to see if you qualify for a mortgage. To apply, go to privlo.com/podcast and fill out a simple online form. You'll have a decision in hours, and it's super simple. That's privlo.com/podcast. Privlo, get home. NMLS ID 1076413. So Phil's opening up an old school video arcade, and he's asking if you should buy the property for this arcade or rent it. Every physical business will make this decision. Should I buy the property I'm going to be moving into, or should I rent it? This is a serious consideration for a lot of people that start a physical business because they think, hey, if I buy the property, I can just lock in the price of the property. You know, property's going up in this area. I don't want to run the risk of rent going up and my expenses being unstable. So this is a lot of things that a lot of people consider. Now, first of all, for any physical business, whether it's you're selling goods or you're selling services, like in Phil's example, his service is entertainment. He's entertaining people through his old school video games at the video arcade. We have an old school video arcade here in San Diego. It's a lot of fun, and I'm kind of envious of Phil because he's going to be embarking on a pretty fun journey. But with any physical business, you have to anticipate the unexpected. And I say this because I really subscribe to the opinion of going very minimal viable when you're starting any business, online or offline. And the reason for this is that you want to keep your expenses down because you don't know what to expect. You may do very well. You may not have a lot of revenue at the start. It may take some time to get a lot of people through the door and build credibility and have return customers. So you want to keep your costs down as much as possible. And you also don't want to tie yourself down to a commitment like a mortgage. Because even if, for example, the price of that property is a good price and the price is going to go up, that's not a guarantee, but let's say it will go up. If you have to get out of that mortgage in a year or 2 or 3, you're going to take a loss because the price of that property will not go up that significantly to cover, the mortgage that you have. This is what's called being upside down. It's very prevalent in selling your car. You sell your car where you owe more than what the car is actually worth. So you don't want to be in this situation. What you want to do, and my advice to you, Phil, is to rent out a property that's suitable for your video arcade. It doesn't have to be the perfect property. I know a lot of us, we want to buy because we want that perfect property. It looks great. It's going to be fitted out so nicely. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is start very minimal viable. Pick a property that's good enough and do well on your actual merits of your service and pleasing your customers and making sure you have a viable business on your hands with your expenses down, with your commitments down. So I advise that you rent out. Find a good property that you can rent out, and rent is going to be cheaper, so you're going to keep your costs down with rent. And if you have a good relationship with your landlord, you can lock in a rent rate for a period of time, 18 months, 2 years, so you can make sure you have some stability in your expenses. And then you have some time. You have a timeline where you say, okay, my job for the next year is to make this business, viable and make sure that it's profitable. And when you outgrow that space, or let's say, for example, you want to expand, you can start exploring the idea of buying. But before you actually have a viable business, because what can happen, and this is completely normal, and this happened to me and happens to every successful entrepreneur, is that you launch a business, you have a lot of high hopes, and unfortunately, it's not what you expected it to be. You're faced with challenges you didn't expect, and you're not making as much money as you expected, and therefore you're shelling out so much money on your mortgage and other expenses to run the business and not really making a profit. You may be just making it, but you could be doing a lot better if you went minimal viable, keeping your expenses low. I highly recommend that you read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It's one of those books that really explains very well how to define a piece of property. Is it going to be a liability or is it going to be an investment? And in your case, it's not going to be an investment because your whole purpose of opening this video arcade is to have a viable business. It's not to invest in real estate. You're not in the real estate business. You're in the video arcade business. You can't serve two masters here. If you're in the real estate business, then you have a different strategy. You're going to buy different types of property. So you're going to see it as a liability. This is a liability, and you want to keep your liabilities as low as possible. And this is why I recommend that you start out by renting. Guys, I got more on today's topic, but before that, I got to give love to today's sponsor, Privlo. Are you self-employed, an entrepreneur, or a business owner who's successful, has good credit, but can't get a mortgage through a traditional lender? Privlo is a new kind of mortgage lender that can help. They take a holistic view of your finances to see if you qualify for a mortgage. Even if you have a bankruptcy or a foreclosure over a year old or a short sale over 6 months ago, you still may be eligible. Same thing if you've avoided taking on debt and have a clean but limited credit history. Privlo knows the gig economy is the new normal and built a company that specializes in home loans tailored to fit real lives. So to apply, go to privlo.com/podcast. Fill out a simple online form and you'll have a decision within hours. That's privlo.com/podcast or call 855-477-4850. Privlo, get home. And now in an amazing demonstration of compliance, that means Privlo's on the up and up, a few words from the government. Privlo Inc. is a licensed equal housing mortgage lender, NMLS ID 1076413, licensed by the Department of Business Oversight under California Residential Mortgage Lending Act, Illinois Residential Mortgage Licensee, Washington CL 1076413, Texas License 107679. All right, Phil, so I recommend that you rent out your property for your video arcade, and I also recommend this for anybody who has a physical business. This also includes if you don't have a physical business, but you're selling physical goods. Say, for example, you're sending out things and you need a warehouse. When I had my clothing line, I started out with a small little garage next to my house, and I shipped things out from there. And then I had a fulfillment service. But the point is that start small, make a profit, make sure you're viable, make sure the business is running, and you actually have a business that can sustain itself, and then start getting bigger in the way you run your business and the way you supply it. All right, Phil, I hope that helps, and I hope this episode was useful, guys. Guys, again, if you have a question you want to ask, we'd love to get it. We'd love to add it to our database. Just email us at contact@100mba.net, or you can tweet at me on Twitter. My handle is BizRepublic, B-I-Z Republic. Guys, we have a whole lot of awesome episodes coming up this week. We have a must-read episode, EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey is the book that I'll be talking about. We'll also talk about how to plan and execute a joint venture on Tuesday. We'll also talk about upselling. Is it scammy? We'll also talk about how to handle customer demands and Free Ride Friday, a whole lot more. Can't wait to get into all those topics. Make sure you're subscribed to the show on iTunes or Stitcher, whatever you use, so you get all these episodes automatically. And remember, guys, you can support the show by giving us an iTunes rating and review. Let us know how we're doing. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what your favorite episode is, what your takeaways are. You could do that by tapping on the cover art if you're using an iPhone, and you'll see a link that says give us a rating and review. Or if you're on a computer, just go to 100mba.net/show. All the details are there. All right, guys, I want to leave you with this. Anytime you're starting any business, be it physical, online, you need to think about what does version 1 of this business look like. Often when we're first getting started, the image in our head of the business that we want is really like version 10 or version 20 for that matter. And we really can't just go from 0 to version 20 overnight. We have to go through the versions and we have to iterate. So think of what does version 1 of this business look like. Try to go as minimal viable as possible. And then once you get to version 1, what does version 2 look like? What does version 3 look like? Keep iterating, keep improving. But the point is that don't start with version 10 or 20. Start with version 1. All right, guys, that wraps up today's episode. I'll check you in tomorrow's episode, our must-read episode, EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey. I'll check you then, guys. Take care.